The wind howled through the Appalachian Trail, clawing at my face as I trudged up the rocky incline, my boots sinking into the damp earth. I was alone just as I'd planned, fleeing a life that felt like a cage I'd built myself. But then I saw her, standing at the cliff's edge, her silhouette framed against the fiery sunset, and my heart whispered, "This is where your story begins." Lily Carter, that's me, 28 years old and running from a breakup that left my heart in shards. I'd packed a bag, laced up my hiking boots, and headed for the mountains of North Carolina, craving solitude to stitch myself back together. The trail was my escape, a place where no one could find me. Not my ex, not my doubts, not the expectations of a world that didn't understand me. The air was crisp, scented with pine and wet leaves as I climbed higher. My legs burned, my lungs ached, but the pain felt honest, unlike the lies I'd told myself for years. I'd always known I was different, drawn to women in a way I'd buried under fear and denial. Growing up in a small southern town, I'd learned to hide that truth, to smile through church sermons and family dinners while my heart screamed for freedom. Now, here with only the mountains as witnesses, I could breathe. That's when I spotted her. She was kneeling by a small campfire at a clearing just off the trail, her auburn hair catching the last light of the day. She looked about 30, her flannel shirt rolled up to her elbows, her movements steady as she arranged kindling. There was something magnetic about her, a quiet strength that made my pulse quicken. I hesitated, my instinct to stay alone warring with a sudden, inexplicable need to know her. "Lost?" she called out, her voice warm but teasing, as she glanced up and caught me staring. Her brown eyes sparkled with mischief, and I felt my cheeks burn. "No," I stammered, stepping closer. "Just taking a break." She smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Name's Emma. You're welcome to share my fire if you're not too stubborn to admit you're freezing." I laughed, surprising myself, and dropped my pack beside her. "Lily," I said, settling onto a log. "And yeah, I'm freezing." Emma handed me a tin mug of coffee, her fingers brushing mine for a split second. That touch sent a jolt through me, like a spark igniting something I'd long kept dormant. We talked as the stars emerged, her stories of hiking across the country mingling with my awkward confessions about why I was here. She listened, really listened, her eyes never leaving mine, and for the first time in years I felt seen. But the trail wasn't just a place for new beginnings. It was unpredictable, wild. As night fell, a low rumble echoed through the valley. Emma's head snapped up, her expression shifting from relaxed to alert. "Storm's coming," she said, standing. "We need to move." I followed her gaze to the horizon, where dark clouds churned, lightning flickering like a warning. My heart pounded, not just from the storm but from the realization that I wasn't alone anymore. Not tonight, maybe not ever. Emma grabbed my hand, pulling me toward a narrow path leading to a cave she knew nearby. Her grip was firm, steady, and I trusted her without question. The rain hit as we reached the cave, a downpour that turned the trail to mud. Inside, the air was cool and damp, the walls echoing with the storm's roar. Emma lit a small lantern, its glow casting shadows across her face. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. I nodded, though my heart was racing. "Yeah, thanks to you." She smiled again, and in that moment, I knew I wasn't just hiding from a storm. I was running towards something, someone who might change everything. As we sat in the flickering light, sharing stories of our lives, I learned Emma was a wanderer, a photographer who chased beauty in the wild places most people avoided. She spoke of her past with a quiet pain, hinting at a family that hadn't accepted her truth, a love that had broken her before she'd rebuilt herself. I told her about my ex, the years of pretending, the ache of wanting to be free. Our words wove us closer, each confession a thread pulling us together. The storm raged on, but inside that cave it was just us. Two women, two stories, two hearts finding each other in the dark. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but as Emma's hand found mine again, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just a hike. This was a turning point. The cave was a cocoon, shielding us from the storm's fury, but it couldn't quiet the storm brewing in my chest. Emma's hand lingered in mine, her warmth seeping through my skin, and I wondered if she felt the same pull I did. A magnetic force, dangerous and undeniable. As the rain pounded outside, I realized I was no longer running from my past. I was standing on the edge of something new, and it terrified me. Morning broke with a fragile calm. The storm reduced to a drizzle. Emma and I emerged from the cave, our clothes damp but our spirits oddly light. The trail stretched ahead, winding through mist-cloaked pines, and she suggested we hike together for the day. Safer that way, she said, but her grin hinted at something more. I agreed, my heart whispering that safety wasn't the only reason I wanted her near. We walked side by side, our steps sinking as if we'd done this 1,000 times. Emma pointed out hidden trails, shared tips for spotting edible plants, and teased me when I tripped over a root. Her laughter was a melody, easing the weight I'd carried for so long. But beneath the ease, tension simmered. Every brush of her arm against mine, every shared glance, felt like a question neither of us dared to ask. By noon we reached a river, its waters rushing over smooth stones. Emma suggested a break and we sat on the bank, sharing granola bars in silence. I watched her, the way her auburn hair caught the sunlight, the way her eyes softened when she looked at me. "Why do you hike alone?" I asked, my voice barely above the river's hum. Her smile faded, replaced by a shadow of something raw. "I used to hike with someone," she said, her gaze distant. "A woman I loved. She didn't stay." Her words hung heavy, and I wanted to reach for her, to erase the pain in her voice. Instead I shared my own truth, how my ex had called my feelings a phase, how I'd spent years hiding who I was. Emma listened, her eyes locking onto mine, and when I finished she reached out, her fingers grazing my wrist. "You're not hiding now," she said softly. "You're here." Those words cracked something open inside me. I wanted to tell her how her presence made me feel alive, how her courage made me want to be brave. But before I could speak, a shout echoed from the trail behind us. "Help!" The voice was sharp, panicked. Emma was on her feet in an instant, her photographer's calm replaced by a leader's focus. I followed as she sprinted toward the sound, my heart racing. We found a hiker, a young man, clutching his ankle on the path. He'd slipped on wet rocks, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle. Emma knelt beside him, her voice steady as she assessed the injury. "Lily, grab my first aid kit," she said, tossing me her pack. I fumbled through it, my hands shaking, but her calm anchored me. We worked together, splinting his leg with branches and bandages, Emma's expertise guiding us. She radioed for help, her voice clear despite the hiker's pained groans. As we waited for the rescue team, Emma's hand found mine again, squeezing gently. "You did good," she whispered. I met her eyes, and for a moment the world narrowed to just us. Two women bound by this moment, by trust, by something unspoken but growing. The rescue team arrived, airlifting the hiker to safety, and Emma and I were left alone again, the adrenaline fading. We set up camp near the river, the stars bright above us. As we sat by the fire, she told me more about her life. Her love for capturing fleeting moments, her dream of opening a gallery, her fear of letting anyone too close. I shared my own dreams, small and fragile, of living openly, of finding a place where I belonged. "Lily," she said, her voice low, "you belong here. Right now." My breath caught. Her words weren't just about the trail, they were about us. I leaned closer, drawn by her warmth, her truth. Our faces were inches apart, the firelight dancing in her eyes. I wanted to kiss her, to cross that line, but fear held me back. What if this was just a moment, fleeting like her photographs? Before I could decide, a rustle in the woods snapped us apart. Emma grabbed her flashlight, shining it into the dark. "Probably just an animal," she said, but her voice was tense. We waited, listening, the night suddenly heavy with unseen threats. The rustle in the woods faded, but the tension lingered, a reminder of how quickly the trail could turn unforgiving. Emma's flashlight beam swept the trees, her jaw tight, and I realized how much I'd come to rely on her strength in just 2 days. My heart pounded, not from fear of the dark, but from the fear of losing this connection before it could fully bloom. We stayed close that night, our sleeping bags inches apart under the stars. Sleep was elusive, my mind replaying the almost kiss, the way Emma's eyes had held mine. Morning brought a fragile peace, the forest alive with birdsong as we packed up and continued our hike. But the trail had more challenges waiting. By mid-afternoon we reached a narrow ridge, the path crumbling under our boots. Below, a steep drop led to a rocky ravine. Emma went first, her steps sure, but I hesitated, my fear of heights clawing at me. "You've got this," she called, turning back with a smile that steadied my nerves. I took a deep breath and followed, my eyes fixed on her. Halfway across, my foot slipped. Pebbles skittered down the cliff and I froze, my heart hammering. Emma was beside me in an instant, her hand gripping my arm. "Look at me, Lily," she said, her voice a lifeline. "One step at a time." With her guidance, I made it across, my legs trembling as we reached solid ground. I collapsed against a tree, adrenaline surging. Emma knelt beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "You're braver than you think," she said, and the warmth in her voice made me believe it. That night we camped in a meadow, the stars a blanket above us. Emma pulled out her camera, snapping photos of the sky, then turned it on me. "What are you doing?" I laughed, shielding my face. "Capturing you," she said, her voice soft. "You're radiant out here." My cheeks flushed and I lowered my hands, letting her see me, really see me. The camera clicked, and in that moment I felt beautiful, not for how I looked, but for who I was becoming with her. As we sat by the fire, Emma opened up about her past love. A woman named Sarah who'd left her for a safer life. The pain in her voice was raw, and I understood it too well, the fear of not being enough, of being too much. I told her about my own struggles, the years of hiding my truth, the shame I'd carried. "You don't have to hide anymore," Emma said, her hand finding mine. This time I didn't pull away. Our fingers intertwined and the world felt right, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. But the trail wasn't done testing us. The next morning we woke to find our food bag torn open, scattered by a bear. Emma cursed under her breath, her calm cracking for the first time. "We're a day's hike from the next supply point," she said, assessing our meager rations. "We'll have to ration what's left." Hunger gnawed at us as we pushed forward, the trail growing steeper, the air thinner. Emma's strength kept me going, but I saw the worry in her eyes. We shared what little food we had, our conversations quieter now, weighted by survival. Yet even in the hardship there was tenderness, her hand brushing my back as we climbed, her smile when I pointed out a hawk circling above. By dusk we reached a small ranger station. Our bodies exhausted but our spirits unbroken. The ranger, a gruff older man, gave us supplies and a warning. A storm was brewing, worse than the last. "Stay off the high trails," he said. "It's dangerous up there." Emma nodded, but I saw the glint in her eyes, the same determination that had drawn me to her. "We'll be careful," she promised, but as we left the station she turned to me. "There's a lookout point up there. Best view on the trail. If we're quick, we can make it before the storm." I hesitated, fear and longing warring inside me. The trail had already pushed me to my limits, but so had Emma, in the best way. "Let's do it," I said, my voice steady. As we climbed toward the lookout, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain. Emma's hand found mine, and I knew whatever came next, we'd face it together. The climb to the lookout was relentless, the trail a jagged scar cutting through the mountain. Emma's hand in mine was the only thing keeping my fear at bay, her steady presence a beacon in the growing dark. I wasn't just climbing a mountain, I was climbing toward her, toward a version of myself I'd never dared to imagine. The wind howled as we reached the lookout, a rocky outcrop with a view that stole my breath. The Appalachian Mountains rolled out before us, their peaks swallowed by clouds, the sky a bruised purple. Emma's face lit up, her camera forgotten as she took in the scene. "Worth it," she whispered, and I wasn't sure if she meant the view or us. We stood close, our shoulders brushing, the air electric with more than just the coming storm. I turned to her, my heart pounding. "Emma, Before I could finish, a crack of thunder split the sky. Rain poured down, cold and unforgiving, and Emma grabbed my hand, pulling me toward a shallow overhang. We pressed against the rock, soaked and shivering, but her laugh cut through the storm's roar. "This is why I love the wild," she said, her eyes bright. "It's messy, but it's real." I laughed too, the sound surprising me. In that moment, drenched and cold, I felt more alive than ever. I reached for her, my fingers brushing her cheek, and she stilled, her eyes searching mine. The world faded, the rain, the wind, the fear, and I kissed her. Her lips were soft, warm, tasting of rain and possibility. She kissed me back, her hands cupping my face, and for the first time I wasn't hiding. I was here, fully, gloriously me. The storm forced us to move, cutting our moment short. We descended the trail, slipping on wet rocks, our hands clasped tightly. The rain eased as we reached a lower camp, but the air between us had changed. We set up a tent, our movements quiet, deliberate. Inside we sat close, our damp clothes clinging to us, the silence heavy with what we just shared. "Lily," Emma said, her voice low. "That it wasn't just the moment, was it?" I shook my head, my throat tight. "No. It's you." She smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I've been scared to let anyone in," she admitted. "After Sarah, I thought I'd always be alone." "You're not," I said, taking her hand. "Not anymore." We talked through the night, our words weaving a future we both wanted but feared. Emma spoke of her dreams, of a life where she could love openly without judgment. I told her about my small town, the weight of expectations, the freedom I craved. Our fears mirrored each other, but so did our hopes. Morning brought clear skies, but the trail had one last challenge. As we packed, Emma's radio crackled with a warning. A flash flood had washed out a bridge ahead, cutting off the main path to the next town. We'd have to take a longer, riskier route through a narrow canyon. Emma's face was grim, but her resolve was unshaken. "We can do this," she said, her hand squeezing mine. I nodded, trusting her, trusting us. The canyon was treacherous, the walls closing in as the river roared below. We moved carefully, our packs heavy, our steps deliberate. Halfway through, Emma stopped, her eyes scanning the cliffs above. "Rockslide risk," she muttered, her voice tense. My stomach twisted, but I followed her lead, my trust in her absolute. We pressed on, the canyon narrowing, the air thick with the river's spray. Then it happened, a rumble above, a cascade of rocks tumbling toward us. Emma shoved me forward, her body shielding mine as we dove for cover. The rocks missed us by inches, crashing into the river below. We lay there, panting, her arms around me, her heart pounding against my back. "You okay?" she whispered, her voice shaking. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "Because of you." We made it through the canyon, battered but alive, our bond stronger for it. As we emerged into sunlight, I knew this wasn't just a hike anymore. It was a journey toward a life I'd never dared to dream of. One where I could love her, fully, fearlessly. The canyon was behind us, but its echo lingered in my bones, a reminder of how close we'd come to losing everything. Emma's hand stayed in mine as we hiked toward the trail's end, her presence a steady pulse against the uncertainty of what came next. I'd found her in the wild, but could our love survive beyond the mountains? We reached the final campsite, a quiet clearing with a view of the stars. The air was cool, the world still, and we sat by the fire, our knees touching. Emma's camera rested in her lap, but she didn't lift it. Instead, she looked at me, her eyes soft but searching. "What happens when we leave?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed, the question heavy. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I know I want you in my life." She smiled, but there was fear in it, the same fear I felt. The trail had been our sanctuary, a place where we could be us, unjudged. The real world wasn't so kind. I thought of my family, their expectations, the whispers in my town. Emma spoke of her own fears, her gallery dreams, the judgment she'd faced, the risk of opening her heart again. "We'll figure it out," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Together." She leaned in, kissing me softly, and I felt the promise in it. A vow to try to fight for this. We fell asleep under the stars, our bodies curled together. The future uncertain but ours to shape. The next morning we reached the trailhead. The end of our journey but the start of something else. The town below was small, welcoming. A place where hikers gathered to share stories. We found a cafe, its walls lined with photos of the trail, and Emma's eyes lit up. "This is where I want my work to be," she said, her voice alive with possibility. Over coffee we made plans, not just for the day but for a life. I'd move to a city, somewhere I could be free, where we could build something together. Emma spoke of her gallery, of capturing moments like ours, of showing the world the beauty of love in all its forms. But the world tested us one last time. As we left the cafe, a man's voice called out, sharp and mocking. "You two together?" He sneered, his eyes narrow. My heart sank, the old fear rising, but Emma stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Yeah, we are. Got a problem with that." He backed off, muttering, but the moment lingered. A reminder of the world's cruelty. Emma took my hand, her grip fierce. "We're stronger than that," she said, and I believed her. We drove to Asheville, the nearest city, Our hands linked over the gearshift. There we found a small gallery hosting local artists, and Emma's eyes sparkled as she talked to the owner, pitching her work. I watched her, my heart swelling with pride, with love. Months later we stood in that same gallery, Emma's photos lining the walls. Images of the trail, of use, of moments that told our story. The opening was packed, strangers and friends celebrating her art, our love. My family wasn't there, they weren't ready, not yet, but I had Emma, and that was enough. As we stood together, her arm around my waist, I thought of the trail, of the storm, the bear, the rock slide. Each challenge had pushed us closer, forging a bond that could withstand anything. I'd come to the mountains to find myself, but I'd found her instead, and she'd changed my path forever. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours, messy, wild, and beautiful like the trail itself. And as I looked at Emma, her smile brighter than the stars we'd slept under, I knew we'd keep walking, hand in hand, toward a future we'd build together, one brave step at a time. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.